For 10 years, my father told anyone who would listen that I was not cut out for this profession. He said I lacked the killer instinct required to run a real firm. So when a thick envelope arrived this morning with his letterhead on it, I expected a lawsuit or a threat. I never expected an application. It seems the man who said I would never be a real lawyer now wants to work for me. The gavel hit the wood block with a dry snap that echoed through the small courtroom. It was the sound of a 2-year battle ending in 4 seconds. Judgment for the plaintiff. Beside me, Elena, a nurse who had been fired for refusing to sign off on a patient chart she knew was falsified, let out a breath that sounded like a sob. She did not cry, though. She just gripped my hand under the table, her knuckles white, her palm damp. I squeezed back. We had asked for reinstatement and back pay, and we had gotten both. I stood up to shake the opposing counsel's hand. He was a partner from a mid-sized firm in the city, a man who had spent the last 3 days trying to paint Elena as incompetent and hysterical. Now, he looked at me with a tight, pained smile. "Good game, counselor," he said. "You are tougher than you look." I thanked him and began packing my files into my briefcase. It was a compliment, I suppose, but as I snapped the leather latches shut, I heard a different voice in my head. It was a voice that had not spoken to me directly in 5 years, yet narrated every single moment of my professional life. "You do not have the instinct, Lily. You have the grades. Sure, you have the work ethic. But you care too much about the sob stories. You will never be a real lawyer because you think the law is about justice. The law is about leverage." My father, Gordon Martinez, had said that to me the day I told him I was leaving his firm, Martinez Klein, to start my own practice. I was 28 then. I was 33 now. And as I walked out of the county courthouse into the gray salted slush of a Harbor Point February, I checked the scoreboard. I had a solvent practice. I had a reputation for taking cases the big firms wouldn't touch. I had a life that was mine. I am a real lawyer. I whispered to the cold air. I drove back to my office, a converted brick row house in the Arts District. It was not the glass and steel tower my father occupied downtown, but it had character. And more importantly, my name was on the door. Martinez Employment Law. Just me, a paralegal, and an office manager. When I walked in, the heat was cranking, rattling the old radiators. Sarah, my office manager, was standing at the reception desk. She held a thick, creamy white envelope in her hands as if it were a live grenade. "This came by courier about 20 minutes ago," Sarah said. She looked pale. I took it from her. The paper was heavy, cotton bonded, expensive. The return address was embossed in navy blue ink. Martinez Klein. LP. Attentions. L. Martinez. Personal and confidential. My stomach did a slow roll. My father did not send letters. He sent summonses, or he sent silence. For the last few years, it had been mostly silence, punctuated by the occasional passive-aggressive birthday card signed by his secretary. "Is it a lawsuit?" Sarah asked. "I don't know," I said. I carried the envelope into my office and closed the door. I sat down at my desk, pushed aside the files from the Elena Victory, and used my letter opener to slit the top of the envelope. I pulled out a thick stack of documents, clipped together with a gold paperclip. The cover page was titled, "Strategic Partnership Proposal." I stared at it. A partnership with Martinez Klein. It had to be a joke. My father's firm was a titan. They defended pharmaceutical giants and insurance conglomerates. I represented nurses, teachers, and mid-level managers who got screwed out of their severance. We were not in the same galaxy, let alone the same league. I turned the page. "Dear Ms. Martinez." The letter began. It was signed by the executive committee. "We have been observing the trajectory of your practice with great interest. Your commitment to community-based advocacy aligns with the evolving values of Martinez Klein. We believe a unification of our resources would provide a unique synergy." Synergy. I hated that word. I flipped through the proposal. It was polished. It was seductive. It spoke of financial security, of clearing my law school debt, of overhead support. It offered to buy out my lease. It offered me a salary that was double what I had made in my best year. But then I got to the organizational chart. I scanned the boxes until I found my name. I was not listed as a litigation partner. I was not listed as senior counsel. There was a box floating off to the side, connected to the main hierarchy by a dotted line. Inside the box, it said Lily Martinez, Community Relations Partner. I read the job description below it. Responsibilities include representing the firm at charity galas, coordinating pro bono outreach days, acting as liaison to local bar association subcommittees. There was no mention of caseload, no mention of hiring authority, no mention of voting rights. He wants to make me a mascot, I said aloud. It was not a job offer. It was a retirement package for a 33-year-old. He wanted to buy my firm, take my name, which was also his name, and park me in a corner office where I could look pretty and talk about values while the real lawyers did the work. It was an insult so precise, so tailored, that it could only have come from him. I went to throw the packet into the recycling bin, but the heavy thud of the paper made me pause. There was an appendix at the back. I had missed it. I flipped to the last section, labeled Due Diligence Asset Integration. My breath stopped. It was a spreadsheet, a very familiar spreadsheet. It was a list of my current active clients. Row 1, Elena Rostova, wrongful termination. Row 2, David Chen, FMLA retaliation. Row 3, Sarah Jenkins, severance negotiation. It went on. 25 names. My entire docket. But it was not just names. Next to each client was a column titled Assessment. Next to Elena, it said Low Value. Dismiss post-merger. Next to David, it said Potential conflict with existing corporate client. Refer out. Next to Sarah, it said Nuisance claim. Settle immediately for nuisance value. My hands started to shake. This was not public information. Some of these clients had only signed retainers a week ago. I had not filed complaints for half of them yet. There was no way Martinez Klein could know these names, let alone the details of their cases, unless they had seen my internal files. I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. I walked out to the reception area. Sarah looked up, startled by the look on my face. "Where is Ben?" I asked. Ben was my paralegal. He was 24, eager, and usually trustworthy. He went to grab lunch. Sarah said, "What is it, Lily?" "You look like you saw a ghost." "Who handles our IT?" I asked. Sarah blinked. "What? Who handles our computer security?" Sarah, "Who has administrative access to the server." "Well, you do," she said. "And Ben does. And the contractor." "What contractor?" Sarah looked confused. "The guy who came in last week to upgrade the firewall. Ben said we needed a security patch because of that phishing scare last month. I had never authorized a security patch. I had never authorized a contractor." "Who hired him?" I asked, my voice low and dangerous. "Ben did." Sarah said. She was starting to look frightened now. "Ben said the guy came highly recommended. He said he was a friend of the family." I closed my eyes. A friend of the family. When Ben walked through the door 5 minutes later, holding a sandwich wrapped in foil, I was waiting for him. I ushered him into my office and shut the door. "Sit down." "Ben." He sat, the sandwich crinkling in his grip. "What is up, boss? Did we win the Elena hearing?" "We won," I said, "but that is not what we are talking about. Tell me about the IT guy." Ben relaxed a little. "Oh, yeah, smart guy. He fixed the latency issue on the calendar. 2. Who recommended him?" "Ben." Ben shrugged. "He called the main line, said he knew your dad, said Gordon Martinez mentioned you guys might need some help with data security since you were growing. He offered a friends and family rate. It was practically free. I thought I was saving us money. I looked at this kid. He was good-hearted. He wanted to be a lawyer one day. He had no idea he had just let a wolf into the hen house because the wolf knocked on the door and said he knew the shepherd." "Ben," I said, "did you give him the admin password? He needed it to install the patch." Ben said. And did you watch him while he worked, Al? No, Ben said. He said it would take a few hours to index the files. I went to get coffee. I felt a wave of nausea. They had indexed the files. All right. They had downloaded my client list, analyzed my potential revenue, and assessed the value of the human beings I represented. Change all the passwords. I said, right now, every single one, email, server, case management software, kick that contractor's credentials out of the system. Ben looked terrified. Did I do something wrong? You trusted the wrong people. I said, do it now. I spent the rest of the afternoon frantically auditing my own system. I called a real cybersecurity firm, one I found myself, and paid them an emergency fee to come out the next morning. Then I sat in my office as the sun went down, staring at the polished proposal from my father's firm. It was not just an insult. It was an invasion. I drove home to the small bungalow I shared with Evan. Evan was the vice principal at a local public high school. He was the kindest man I knew, grounded and sane, the complete opposite of the sharp-elbowed Shark Tank world I had grown up in. I found him in the kitchen, stirring a pot of chili. He smiled when he saw me, but the smile faded when he saw my face. Rough day, he asked. I tossed the proposal onto the kitchen island. My father's firm wants to acquire me. I said. Evan picked up the packet. He whistled as he read the cover letter. Acquire you, Lily. This says they want to partner with you. That sounds good, doesn't it? Read the job title. I said. He squinted. Community relations partner. It means trophy wife. Evan. But for a law firm. He put the paper down. Okay. So the title sucks. But Lily, look at the numbers. They are offering to wipe out your student loans. They are offering you stability. Maybe he's trying to reach out. Maybe this is his way of saying he respects what you built. I laughed. And it was a harsh, ugly sound. Respect, Evan. They hacked my server. They stole my client list to make this offer. They know things they can only know if they broke into my files. Evan looked shocked. They hacked you. Are you sure I am sure? He stirred the chili slowly. That is illegal. Lily, your father is a lot of things, but is he a criminal? Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe you sent them a file by accident. I stared at him. I loved him. But sometimes his normalcy was infuriating. He could not conceive of a world where a father would spy on his daughter to gain leverage in a business deal. It was not a mistake. I said, it is a trap. He wants to absorb me. He wants to shut me up. Evan walked over and put his hands on my shoulders. Listen to me, he said. You are tired. You just won a big case. You are paranoid because it is Gordon. Just say no. Throw the packet in the trash. Send him a polite email saying you are not interested. Do not let him live in your head. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe it was that simple. Just say no. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I could not shake the feeling that no was not an answer my father would accept. The application felt too heavy, too detailed. It felt like the first move in a chess game I didn't know I was playing. The next morning, the phone rang. It was not a client. It was a woman with a voice that sounded like it was being squeezed through a tight metal tube. Is this Lily Martinez? She asked. Yes, this is she. My name is Nadia Pierce. I was given your name by a nurse you represented, Elena Rostova. I sat up straighter. Elena, the woman I had just won the hearing for. How can I help you? Ms. Pierce, I need a lawyer, she said. But I cannot talk on the phone. I checked my schedule. I can fit you in for a consult this afternoon. Or we can do a video call. No video, she said. No phones. I need to meet you somewhere neutral. Not your office, not my house. My internal radar started pinging. This was whistleblower behavior. Okay, I said. There is a coffee shop on 4th and Main, the Roasted Bean. It is usually quiet in the back. Can you be there in an hour? I will be there, she said. I will be the one in the gray raincoat. She hung up. I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early. I bought a black coffee and found a booth in the back corner. I watched the door. Precisely at the hour, a woman walked in. She was 40-ish, with tired eyes and hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a gray raincoat, She clutched a leather tote bag to her chest. She scanned the room, saw me, and walked over. She did not shake my hand. She sat down and immediately put the tote bag between her feet. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "You said Elena referred you," I asked. "Yes." She said, "You are not afraid of powerful people." "I try not to be." I said, "Who are we talking about?" "Ms. Pierce. I work for Halcyon Health Systems." She said. I nodded. Halcyon was the biggest employer in the county. They ran 3 hospitals and a dozen urgent care clinics. They were massive. I am a compliance officer in the billing department. She continued. 6 months ago, I noticed a pattern. We were billing Medicare for staffing levels we did not have. Ghost shifts. I asked. She nodded. Worse, we were claiming we had 4 nurses on the ICU floor during night shifts when we only had 2. We were billing for the higher level of care. But the patients were not getting it. People died. Ms. Martinez. I found 3 cases where patient distress was missed because the nurse was covering too many beds. I felt the familiar thrill of a righteous case. This was big. This was False Claims Act territory. Did you report it? I asked. I went to the internal ethics hotline. She said, anonymous, or it was supposed to be. 2 days later, my boss called me in. He said I was being restructured. They moved my desk to the basement. They took away my access to the live server. Then the harassment started. My car tires were slashed. My personnel file suddenly had write-ups for things I never did. She leaned in. I have copies, she whispered. Before they locked me out, I printed the shift logs. I printed the emails where the VP of operations told the nursing supervisors to fudge the numbers if they wanted their bonuses. This is a strong case. Nadia, I said, retaliation is illegal. Fraud is illegal. She looked around the coffee shop, her eyes darting to a man in a suit ordering a latte. It is not just Halcyon, she said. When I threatened to go to the state board, my boss laughed at me. He said they had top-tier protection. He showed me an email chain. She reached down into her bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper. She slid it across the table, face down. I turned it over. It was a printout of an email from the Halcyon CEO to the General Counsel. The subject line was Compliance Issue/Pierce. The text read, Get the outside team on this. I want this suffocated before it gets to the audit phase. Gordon says he can handle it quietly. I froze. Gordon? I asked. Nadia pointed to the email address in the CC line. G. Martinez Klein. Com. My blood ran cold. Your father's firm represents Halcyon, Nadia asked. Her voice was trembling. Elena said you were estranged. She said you hated him. But if you are working with him, I am not working with him, I said quickly. I reached out and put my hand on the paper. I am independent. Completely. Nadia looked at me with deep suspicion. If I hire you, she said, and you are secretly talking to him, I am dead. Do you understand? They will destroy me. I looked at the email again. Gordon says he can handle it quietly. My father was the outside counsel for the company that was destroying this woman's life. And yesterday, he had sent me an application to merge our firms. The pieces clicked together in my mind with a sickening sound. The application, the client list, the timing. He knew about this case. He knew Nadia was looking for a lawyer. He knew Elena would refer her to me. He wasn't trying to buy my firm because he loved me. He wasn't even trying to buy my firm to make money. He was trying to conflict me out. If I was a partner at Martinez Klein, even a community relations partner, I could not sue Halcyon. It would be a conflict of interest. He was trying to absorb me to neutralize me. I looked at Nadia. Ms. Pierce, I said, I'm going to take your case, and I'm going to tell you something right now. I am the only lawyer in this city who can take this case, because I am the only one who knows exactly how that man operates. She studied my face for a long time. Then, she nodded. Okay, she said. Where do we start? We start by securing your evidence, I said. I walked back to my office in a daze. The city looked different now. The shadows stretched longer. Every window seemed like an eye. When I got back to my desk, the partnership application was still sitting there. The glossy cover, the gold clip. I sat down and pulled it toward me. I wanted to find the clause, the one that would prove my theory. I flipped through the dense legal text, purchase price, vesting schedule, non-compete, and then I saw the cover letter again. I had read it yesterday, but I had only skimmed the top. I had seen "Dear Miss Martinez" and assumed it was a standard mail merge. But now, looking closer, I saw something odd about the header. The letter was formatted like a pleading. At the very top, in small font, it didn't say "by hand delivery." It said, "State of New York Harbor County Chancery Division in the restructuring of Martinez Klein, LLP." And below that, in the to line. It did not say Lily Martinez. It said, "To the Honorable Clerk of the Chancery Division." My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a letter to me. I turned the page. Paragraph 1. The undersigned entity, Martinez Klein, LLP, hereby submits its plan for strategic reorganization. Paragraph 4. The firm has entered into a provisional agreement to acquire the assets and client matters of Martinez Employment Law, effectively immediately upon court approval. I dropped the paper. He hadn't just sent me an offer. He had filed a document with the court saying I had already agreed to it. He was not asking for a merger. He was faking one. And he had sent me the court copy by mistake. Or maybe, knowing him, it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was a warning. I looked at the phone. I needed to call Renee, my mentor. I needed to call a security team. I needed to scream. But instead, I just stared at the signature at the bottom of the page. Gordon Martinez, senior partner. He had signed my name away. I reached into my drawer and pulled out a fresh legal pad. I uncapped my pen. Game on. "Dad," I whispered. I wrote down the first item on my to-do list. 1. Survive. The rain in Harbor Point does not wash things clean. It just makes the grit stick harder. I met Nadia Pierce for the second time inside the reference room of the public library, a place that smelled of damp wool and old glue. It was the only place she felt safe. She slid a heavy manila envelope across the scratched wooden table. Her hands were trembling. Not with the frantic energy of the coffee shop, but with the heavy, vibrating frequency of someone who has just pulled the pin on a grenade and is waiting for the boom. "I need you to sign this first," I said, sliding my engagement letter back to her. She picked up the pen and signed her name without reading the fee structure. To her. I was not a lawyer anymore. I was a bodyguard. I opened the envelope. Inside was a thumb drive and a stack of printed spreadsheets. "It is encrypted," Nadia said. "The password is my employee ID number backwards." I nodded. Plugging the drive into my air-gapped laptop, a machine I had bought for cash at an electronics store 2 hours ago, specifically for this meeting, I was done trusting my office network. When the files opened, I saw exactly what she had described, but the scale was worse. The timeline was a jagged red line of corruption. Every time the hospital census dropped below a profitable margin, the nursing logs showed a sudden, miraculous influx of staff that did not exist. "Look at the dates," Nadia whispered. She pointed to a column on the screen. I traced the line. January 12th, February 4th, March 9th. These correspond to the Medicare reimbursement submission windows, I said. "Exactly," she said. "And look at what happens 2 days after each submission." I looked. 2 days after every fraudulent submission. There was an email thread titled "Risk Mitigation," sent from the CFO to an external party. To G. Martinez Klein, my father. Nadia looked at me, her eyes wide and wet. "I flagged the ghost shifts in November," she said. "I sent a memo to compliance." 1 week later. "Your father's firm billed Halcyon for 40 hours of crisis management. Then my boss told me my performance was slipping. Then they moved my desk. I closed the laptop. The sensation in my chest was heavy and cold, like I had swallowed a stone. This was not just a defense attorney protecting a client. This was a cleaner mopping up blood before the police arrived. My father was not just reacting to lawsuits. He was architecting the cover-up. "I can take this case." "Nadia," I said, keeping my voice steady. But you need to understand what they will do. They will not just attack your credibility, they will attack your sanity. They will try to make you look like a disgruntled, unstable employee who imagined the fraud. They already are, she said, but I'm not imagining it, and neither are you. I left the library with the drive in my pocket and the taste of iron in my mouth. I needed advice, but not from anyone on my payroll. I needed Renee. Renee Caldwell ran her practice out of a converted carriage house in the historic district. She was 60 years old, wore silk scarves that cost more than my car, and had the ethical rigidity of a nun with a law degree. She had been my mentor when I first left my father's firm, the only partner in town who didn't treat me like a leper for defying Gordon Martinez. I sat in her oversized armchair and laid it all out. The partnership application, the stolen client list, the Halcyon connection. Renee listened, sipping her tea, her face unreadable. When I finished, she set the cup down with a delicate clink. It is a conflict trap. Lily, she said. I know. I said, he wants to buy me so I cannot sue his client. It is more than that, she said. If you sign that merger agreement, or even if you negotiate it too far, you become an agent of Martinez and Klein. Imputed disqualification. If you are part of the firm, you are conflicted out of every case the firm opposes. She leaned forward. But here is the darker part, she said. Even if you do not sign, he might try to argue that you are already conflicted. How, I asked. I have not signed anything. He sent you confidential internal data, Renee said. That spreadsheet, the client pipeline. If he can prove you looked at it, he can argue you have seen Martinez and Klein's proprietary strategy. He can file a motion to disqualify you from the Halcyon case simply because he poisoned the well. He forced you to drink from his cup, and now he will say you are infected. I felt a flash of pure rage. So what do? I asked. Do I ignore him? No, Renee said. If you ignore him, he will control the narrative. You need to verify the threat. Send a conflict check. Make it formal. Treat them like strangers. So I did. I went back to my office using the guest Wi-Fi on a clean laptop and drafted a formal email to the conflicts department at Martinez Klein. I did not address it to my father. I used the general intake address. I requested a conflict check for a potential matter involving Halcyon Health Systems, listing myself as opposing counsel. I expected a delay. I expected silence. What I got, 12 minutes later, was a reply from the managing partner. From e.kleinmartinezklein.com, subject re-inquiry/lunch. Dear Lily, Gordon mentioned you might be reaching out. We have flagged the potential conflict, but we believe it is moot given the pending unification of our entities. Let's discuss this warmly and transparently. Are you free for lunch tomorrow at the Meridian Best? Elaine Klein, the Klein in Martinez Klein. She was my father's right hand, a woman who smiled with her mouth but never with her eyes. She was the one who fired people on Friday afternoons so they wouldn't cause a scene. I typed back, I will be there. The Meridian was the kind of restaurant where the water was imported from glaciers and the menu had no prices. It was a power room. Every table was occupied by a judge, a senator, or a CEO. Elaine was waiting for me at a window table. She looked impeccable in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my entire office lease. She stood up when I approached, offering a double-cheek air kiss that I deftly sidestepped, offering a stiff hand instead. Lily, she said, her voice smooth as polished glass. You look tired, but good, resilient. Hello, Elaine, I said. We sat. She ordered sparkling water. I ordered iced tea. I am so glad we could finally connect, she said, unfolding her napkin. Gordon is so terrible at the administrative side of things. He gets so emotional when it comes to you. I told him, let me handle Lily. She's a businesswoman now. She wants to talk strategy, not feelings. I looked at her. Is that what we are doing? I asked. Talking strategy. Elaine smiled. We are talking about the future. We are so impressed with what you have built. Lily, the boutique feel, the grassroots advocacy. It is very... Now. She took a sip of water. The firm is evolving. She continued, "We have been the old guard for too long. Gordon knows that. We want to pivot. We want to launch a new division. Martinez Community Justice, and we want you to be the face of it." "The face," I repeated. "Exactly," she said. "The face of a new compassionate direction. You would handle the public interest cases, the pro bono work. You would be on the brochures. You would speak at the law schools. It would be a very high-profile role." "And who would handle the litigation?" I asked. "Who would handle the trials?" She waved a hand dismissively. "We have a deep bench for the grunt work." "Lily, you shouldn't be bogging yourself down with discovery and motions. You are a brand. We want to elevate that brand." It was exactly what I had suspected. They wanted to turn me into a hood ornament, a shiny, ethical emblem they could slap on the front of their tank while they rolled over people like Nadia Pierce. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "Elaine," I said, "I read the packet." She beamed. "Wonderful. Then you saw the compensation package. It is quite generous." "I saw the spreadsheet," I said. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. A tiny twitch at the corner of her mouth. "The spreadsheet," she asked. "The one listing every single one of my clients," I said, "including their case values and my private intake notes." Elaine blinked. Her eyes widened. It looked like genuine surprise, but with Elaine, you could never be sure. She was a master of the sympathetic gasp. "That," she started, then cleared her throat. "That must be an administrative error. The due diligence team sometimes gets ahead of themselves. They scrape public records. You know, my intake notes are not public records." "Elaine," I said, "and neither is my calendar. Someone accessed my server." She laughed. A light, tinkling sound that drew glances from the nearby tables. "Oh, Lily, don't be dramatic. Accessed your server. That sounds like a spy novel. I am sure it was just some metadata aggregation. We use very sophisticated software." She reached across the table and patted my hand. I pulled it away. "Let's not get hung up on the tech," she said. "Let's talk about the real issue. Your lease is up in 6 months, isn't it? And looking at the market in the arts district, your rent is going to triple, and that student loan debt. 200,000. That is a heavy anchor. Sweetie, we can cut that chain for you." She knew my rent expiration. She knew my debt balance down to the digit. "This isn't an offer." "Elaine," I said, "it is a hostile takeover." She sighed, looking at me like I was a toddler refusing to put on a coat. "It is a lifeboat." "Lily," she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Gordon is trying to save you. You are swimming out into deep water with this halcyon business. You are not equipped for the currents out there." There it was, the threat. I stood up. I had not taken a sip of my tea. "Tell Gordon I learned to swim a long time ago," I said, "and tell him to stay out of my server." I walked out of the restaurant, my heart pounding a rhythm against my ribs. I needed fresh air. I needed to scream. But before I could even get to my car, my phone buzzed. It was him. The caller ID said, "Dad." I hadn't changed it in 10 years, even though I probably should have changed it to opposing counsel. I stared at the screen. If I didn't answer, he would know he had rattled me. I slid the bar to answer. "Hello?" "Gordon?" I said. "Lily." His voice came through the speaker. It was warm, rich. It was the voice he used when he was closing a jury, the voice that made you feel like you were the only two people in the world. "Elaine tells me you ran out of lunch." He said. "I didn't run." I said, "I left." There is a difference. I heard him sigh, a long, weary sound. "I am trying to make things right. Lily, I am an old man. I look at what I have built, and I look at you, and I realize we shouldn't be on opposite sides. I am proud of you. Do you know that I saw you on the news after that nurse hearing? You have fire. You have your mother's fire." My throat tightened. He knew exactly where to hit. My mother had died when I was 12. She was the only sacred thing we shared. "Then why did you hack my firm?" I asked. "Why did you try to bribe me to drop a case I'm not bribing you?" He said, sounding hurt. "I am offering you a legacy. I want you to come home." Lily, I want to put your name next to mine before I retire. Is that so terrible? It sounded so real. For a second. Just a split second. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that the war was over and my father just wanted his daughter back. But then he continued. Just don't embarrass yourself by overreacting. Lily, you have a tendency to get hysterical when you're under pressure. This halcyon thing. It is too big for you. You are going to get hurt. I am just trying to put a roof over your head before the storm hits. Hysterical. The word snapped the spell instantly. It was his favorite word for any woman who disagreed with him. I am not hysterical. Gordon, I said, I am prepared. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, just breathing. In, out. In, out. He was good. He was so good. He could mix love and poison in the same sentence and make you thank him for the drink. I drove home, needing the sanctuary of my kitchen, needing Evan, when I walked in. Evan was sitting at the dining table, grading papers. He looked up, his face troubled. Hey, he said. How was lunch, he asked. It was an ambush. I said, dropping my keys on the counter. Elaine threatened me. Gordon called me. They are closing in. Evan put his red pen down. Yeah, he said. I know. I stopped. You know Gordon called me. Too, Evan said. I felt the blood drain from my face. He called you? When about an hour ago. Evan said. He left a voicemail. Evan picked up his phone and tapped the screen. He held it out to me. I took it. I pressed play. Hello. Evan. Gordon's voice purred. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I know Lily is struggling right now. She is under a lot of stress, and I'm worried she is not thinking clearly. I sent her a lifeline, a chance to merge our firms, but she is seeing enemies where there are only family members. There was a pause. I know you are looking to move up to the district administration level. Evan, I have some friends on the school board. I would love to make an introduction. Maybe we could all have dinner, help Lily see reason. She listens to you. She needs a steady hand right now. The message ended. I stared at the phone. He wasn't just coming for my practice. He was coming for my relationship. He was trying to recruit my fiancé as a handler. He is trying to buy you, too. I whispered. Evan took the phone back. I know, he said. He thinks everyone has a price. Did you call him back, I asked. Evan looked at me. No, of course not. But Lily, he sounded scared, not threatening. Scared for you. He is not scared for me. Evan, I shouted. The tension finally snapping. He is scared of me. He is scared. I am going to expose his client. Evan stood up. Lily, calm down. Do not tell me to calm down, I yelled. That is what he says. We stared at each other. The air in the kitchen was thick and heavy. This was what Gordon did. He didn't just fire bullets. He released a gas that made everyone turn on each other. I took a deep breath. I am sorry. I said, I am sorry. But you have to understand. He is weaponizing you. If you engage with him, even to be polite, he will use it. I get it, Evan said. But maybe there is a way to de-escalate this, without a war. There is no de-escalation. I said, there is only surrender or victory, and I am not surrendering. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. Sarah and Ben were already there, looking grim. Another invoice came. Sarah said, from the IT guy. She handed me a piece of paper. It was a bill for $2,000. The description of services read, Network Audit and Remote Access Stabilization. I stared at the date. The service had been performed last night, at 2 a.m. Stabilization, I asked. I logged into the server logs. Sure enough, there was a login at 2:03 a.m. The user was admin, but I had changed the admin password. I had changed it 2 days ago. How did he get back in, I muttered. Then I looked closer at the invoice. In the authorized by field, it didn't say Lily Martinez. It said cleared by the senior partner. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty window. I don't have a senior partner. I said to the room. Ben looked up from his desk. Maybe he meant you. I said, he meant Gordon. Gordon was authorizing work on my system. He was treating my firm like a subsidiary he already owned. He was paying contractors to keep a back door open so he could watch me. I picked up the phone and called the cybersecurity firm I had hired the day before. "Get over here," I said, "now, and bring something to rip the hardware out of the wall if you have to." I spent the morning watching a team of strangers dissect my network. They found it within an hour, a rootkit installed deep in the operating system. It was sending a mirror image of my calendar and my email headers to an IP address in the Cayman Islands. "It is sophisticated," the lead tech said. "This is not some guy in a basement. This is corporate espionage grade." While they worked, the mail arrived. Sarah brought in the stack. She held one envelope separate from the others. It was from the Harbor County Chancery Division. I took it. My hands were steady now. The anger had burned off the fear. I opened the seal. It was a notice of filing. In the restructuring of Martinez Klein, LLP. I scanned the document. It was a petition to seal the proceedings, arguing that public disclosure would harm client confidentiality, but in paragraph 3. It listed the affected entities: Martinez Klein, LLP, petitioner, Martinez Employment Law, proposed successor entity. I read it again. Proposed successor entity. He had filed it. He had actually filed a document with the court stating that my firm was the successor to his. This was not just a lie. This was a legal bear trap. If the court approved this, even preliminarily, I could be held liable for his firm's debts. I could be pulled into his malpractice suits. I could be destroyed by his baggage without ever seeing a dime of his money. And he had done it without my signature. He was relying on implied consent, probably using the negotiations with Elaine and the IT integration as proof that we were already merging. He was stealing my identity, but he was doing it with pleadings instead of credit cards. I walked into my office and closed the door. I looked at the whiteboard where I kept my case list. Nadia Pierce was at the top. If I didn't stop this, I wouldn't just lose my firm. Nadia would lose her case. Elena would lose her lawyer. Everyone who trusted me would be swallowed whole by the machine that was Martinez Klein. I picked up my phone and called Renee. "Lily," she answered, "I need you to represent me." I said, "On the merger?" she asked. "No," I said, "there is no merger. I need you to represent me in the Chancery action. I need you to file an emergency motion to strike my name from the petition." "Okay," Renee said, "I can do that. But Lily, once we file that, it is war. There is no going back to Sunday dinners." I looked at the invoice on my desk. Cleared by the senior partner. I looked at the email from Elaine. Compassionate direction. I looked at the picture of my mother on my bookshelf. She was smiling, holding me when I was 5 years old. Gordon was in the background of the photo, looking at his watch. He has been at war with me since the day I told him I wanted to be a lawyer. I said, "I just didn't realize I was supposed to be shooting back." I hung up the phone. I turned to the cybersecurity lead. "Clean it." I said, "Burn the whole system down and rebuild it if you have to. But when you are done, I want a report. I want to know every file they touched, every keystroke they logged, and exactly who paid for the software." He nodded. "We can do that." I sat down at my empty desk. My computer was gone. My files were in boxes. My fiancé was being courted by my enemy. But for the first time in days, my head was clear. "You want to apply to my firm, Dad?" I thought, application denied. The report from the cybersecurity firm was 13 pages long, spiral-bound, and devastatingly specific. The specialist, a man named Dev, with tired eyes and very fast hands, sat across from me in my stripped-down office. He pointed to a diagram that looked like a tangled road map. "Here's the entry point," he said. "When the contractor ran the stabilization script, he didn't just patch your firewall. He dropped a persistent authentication token into your system registry." "What does that mean in English?" I asked. "It means he gave someone else a master key." Dev said, "They didn't need your password because the system thought they were already logged in. But here's the interesting part. They didn't take your case files. They didn't download your PDFs or your evidence folders." I leaned in. "Then what did they take? Metadata," he said. "Client names, intake dates, calendar entries, billing codes. He tapped the page. They were mapping you. Lily, they were building a schematic of your business, who you represent, how much they pay you, and who is in your pipeline. It wasn't a data heist. It was a due diligence audit. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. They weren't trying to steal my cases to work them. I said, they were trying to value my firm so they could pretend they bought it. Exactly, Dev said. It is what a parent company does to a subsidiary. I thanked him and paid the invoice on the spot. Then I walked out to the reception desk. Sarah was typing furiously, her shoulders hunched. Ben was gone for the day. It was just the two of us. Sarah, I said. She jumped. She spun her chair around, and I saw her eyes were red-rimmed. She had been crying. I need the truth about the contractor. Sarah, I need to know exactly how that call went. She crumbled. It wasn't a fight. It was a surrender. It was Gordon's executive assistant. She sobbed. Mrs. Gable. She called me last week. She said Gordon was so proud of how fast you were growing. But he was worried your infrastructure couldn't handle the load. She said he wanted to pay for an upgrade as a surprise. A gift. A gift. I repeated. She made it sound so nice. Lily. She said Gordon didn't want you to worry about the cost. She said, let us support her growth. I thought it was sweet. I thought maybe they were finally being nice to you. And why didn't you tell me? I asked gently. Because Mrs. Gable said you were too proud to accept help. Sarah said. She said if I told you, you would just return it out of stubbornness. She asked me to do it as a favor to your dad. I closed my eyes. It was classic Gordon. He weaponized my own employees' goodwill against me. He knew Sarah loved me. He knew she wanted me to reconcile with him, so he used that hope to plant a bug in my office. I am not mad at you. Sarah, I said, handing her a tissue. But you need to understand something. My father does not give gifts. He makes investments, and he expects a return on every single one. She nodded, wiping her face. I am so sorry. Lily, it is okay, I said, but from now on, if anyone from that firm calls, even if it is the Pope calling on their behalf, you hang up and come to me. Deal, she whispered. I went back to my desk and opened the encrypted drive Nadia had given me. The cybersecurity team had cleaned a laptop for me to use. Completely air-gapped from the network, I dove into the emails. The trail was clearer now. I found a thread from mid-November. Subject staffing variance/reimbursement impact. From VP of Operations, Halcyon Health, to CEO, Halcyon Health. The text was blunt. We are showing a 20% variance in ICU staffing for Q3. If we report the actuals, we trigger a CMS audit and lose the performance bonus. I need authorization to adjust the logs to reflect projected staffing rather than actual. The reply from the CEO came 4 hours later. Run it by legal. If Gordon signs off on the risk, do it. But make sure we have a scapegoat if the auditors look too close. Find a mid-level manager we can pin the clerical error on. I scrolled down. 2 days later, there was a forwarded message from a junior associate at Martinez Klein. Subject review of adjustment protocol. Attached memo _ privileged ... PDF ... I couldn't open the attachment. It wasn't on the drive, but the body of the email was visible ... Per the senior partner's review ... The proposed adjustment falls within the gray zone of good faith estimation, provided you have a documented corrective action plan. We recommend isolating the reporting function to a single compliance officer to contain liability. Isolating the reporting function. That was Nadia. They had set her up. They had deliberately funneled the fraudulent numbers through her desk so that when the hammer dropped, she would be the one holding the handle. And my father's firm had written the playbook. I picked up the phone and called the opposing counsel for Halcyon, a man named Richard Vance. He was a pit bull in a cheap suit, known for burying solo practitioners in paper. Mr. Vance, I said, this is Lily Martinez. I am representing Nadia Pierce. Ms. Martinez, he barked. I was about to call you. Your subpoena is overbroad, burdensome, and frankly, ridiculous. We are moving to Quash. I'm sure you are. I said, but before you do, you might want to look at the email from November 14th regarding the adjustment protocol. There was a silence on the line, a long, heavy silence. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his voice had lost its bluster. I think you do, I said, and I think you know that if we go to discovery, that email is going to be Exhibit A. So let's stop playing games. I want the unredacted staffing logs, and I want them by Friday. Ms. Martinez, he said, his voice dropping to a low growl. You are treading on dangerous ground. We are aware of your personal connection to the outside counsel on this matter. If you are using privileged family information to harass my client, I will file a bar complaint so fast your head will spin. This looks like conflict-driven harassment. I gripped the phone tight. It is not harassment. Richard, it is evidence. And if you file a complaint, make sure you spell my name right. It is Martinez, but not that Martinez. I hung up. My hand was shaking. They were going to play the conflict card. They were going to say I stole the information from my father, or that I was suing them just to get back at him. They would turn my investigation into a family feud. That afternoon, the mail arrived with a thick, cream-colored envelope. It was an invitation. The Harbor Point Justice Forum. It was the biggest legal event of the year. Judges, politicians, partners from all the big firms. Tickets were $500 a plate. I opened the card. We are pleased to invite you as a featured speaker for our Next Generation panel, nominated by Martinez Klein, LLP, Honoree Lily Martinez, Rising Legacy Attorney. I stared at the words, Rising Legacy Attorney, not Civil Rights Attorney, not Employment Attorney, Legacy Attorney. It was a branding exercise. They were trying to publicly claim me, if I spoke at this event, under their nomination, with that title. I was effectively endorsing the narrative that I was their successor. I would be walking onto a stage they built, wearing a label they printed. I showed it to Evan when I got home. Don't go, he said immediately. Throw it in the trash. It is a trap. Lily, I know it is a trap, I said, pacing the kitchen, but if I don't go, they will just announce it anyway. They will say, Lily couldn't be here, but she sends her regards as she steps into her new role. They will speak for me. So what Evan said, let them talk. You know the truth. The truth doesn't matter if the entire legal community believes the lie. I said, if the judges think I am merging with Gordon, they will treat me differently. If clients think I am merging, they will stop calling me for cases against big corporations. I have to go. Why? To take the microphone. I said, if they hand me a mic, I can say whatever I want. I can define myself before they do. Evan looked at me, worried. You are going to walk into the lion's den, he said. I am not walking into the den, I said. I am bringing my own whip. The night of the forum, I wore my sharpest suit, a midnight blue that looked nothing like the conservative gray my father always wanted me to wear. I wore heels that made me taller. I put on lipstick that was more war paint than makeup. The ballroom was packed. Chandeliers glittered overhead. The air smelled of expensive cologne and roasted chicken. I checked in at the registration desk. The woman handed me a badge. Lily Martinez, Martinez Klein Affiliate. I took a black marker from my purse and crossed out, Martinez Klein Affiliate. I wrote Martinez Employment Law in bold letters underneath. The woman watched me, eyes wide, but said nothing. I walked into the room. People waved. People smiled. But the smiles felt different tonight. They were the knowing smiles of people who thought they were in on a secret. Congratulations, Lily, a judge, called out as he passed. Wonderful news about the unification. I just nodded and kept walking. Correcting them one by one was impossible. I had to do it all at once. I found my seat at the head table. To my left was the dean of the law school. To my right was an empty chair reserved for special guest. I sat down, my nerves vibrating like a plucked string. Then the lights dimmed. The moderator, a retired appellate judge named Harrison, took the podium. Welcome, friends, colleagues, And pillars of justice, he boomed. He went through the usual opening remarks, then he turned to the introductions. Tonight, we have a special moment, he said. We often talk about the law as a tradition, passed down from generation to generation. Tonight, we see that tradition in action. Please welcome the man who built the legal landscape of Harbor Point. And the inspiration for our rising legacy honoree, Mr. Gordon Martinez. The spotlight swung to the front row. My father stood up. He looked magnificent. Silver hair, tailored tuxedo, the posture of a king. The room erupted in applause. He waved, humble and gracious, and then he turned and looked directly at me. He smiled. It was a proud, loving smile. It was the smile of a father watching his daughter graduate, and then he walked up the steps to the stage. He wasn't just in the audience, he was introducing me. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't in the program. Gordon took the podium. The room went silent. Thank you. Judge, he said. His voice was warm honey. I am not here tonight as a lawyer. I am here as a father. When Lily started her practice 5 years ago, I was tough on her. I told her she had to earn it. And she did. She fought, she scraped, and she built something beautiful. He paused, looking down at me. And now, as we look to the future, as we look to bring our families and our firms together, I want to say how proud I am to welcome her back into the fold, not just as my daughter, but as my partner. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of Martinez Klein, Lily Martinez. The applause was thunderous. People stood up. I sat there, frozen. He had done it. He had announced the merger as a done deal, in front of 500 witnesses. On a stage where I couldn't interrupt him without looking like a lunatic, I stood up. I had to. The spotlight was on me. I walked to the podium. My father stepped back, opening his arms for a hug. I had a split second to decide. If I hugged him, I sealed the deal. The photo would be on the front page of the legal journal tomorrow. The prodigal daughter returns. If I pushed him away, I looked like an ungrateful, unstable child having a tantrum at a black tie gala. I stepped into the hug, stiff as a board, and whispered in his ear, "You are a liar, Gordon," he chuckled, patting my back. It sounded like a sob of emotion to the audience. "Smile, Lily," he whispered back. "You just won the lottery." I pulled away and took the podium. I adjusted the microphone. I looked out at the sea of faces. "Thank you, Gordon," I said. My voice was steady, but cold. It is true that I have learned a lot from my father. I learned that the law is a powerful tool. I paused. But I also learned that independence is the most valuable asset a lawyer has. My firm, Martinez Employment Law, is proud of the work we do. We represent the individuals, not the institutions, and while I appreciate the generous offer of collaboration from Martinez and Klein, I want to be clear tonight. The room went quiet. The air shifted. My practice is, and will remain, independent. We are not merging. We are not unifying. We are standing on our own 2 feet, serving the clients who need us most. I looked at my father. His smile hadn't moved, but his eyes had turned into flint. "Thank you for the honor," I said, "but the only legacy I'm interested in building is my own." I walked off the stage. The applause was scattered, confused. People whispered. I didn't care. I walked straight for the exit, but I didn't make it. In the lobby, Elaine blocked my path. She had a photographer with her. "Lily," she cried, grabbing my arm. That was so. Spirited Gordon loves that fire. "Come, let's get a quick photo for the press release. Just you and Gordon and me. One big happy family. Get your hand off me." "Elaine," I said. She tightened her grip. Her nails dug into my bicep. "Don't be stupid," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "We have already filed the papers. The court thinks you are on board. If you make a scene now, you look erratic. Just take the damn picture." I ripped my arm away. I said no. I turned and walked out the double doors into the cool night air. I was shaking. I felt sick. I got into my car and drove, driving aimlessly for an hour before going home. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was blowing up. I opened the local legal news site. The headline read, "Martinez Dynasty Unites Daughter to Lead New Community Division." And there was the photo. It was a photo of me, Gordon, and Elaine, but I hadn't taken a photo. I looked closer. It was a crop. They had taken a photo from when I was on stage. When Gordon had hugged me, and they had photoshopped Elaine into the background, smiling, it looked like we were posing together. It looked official. I threw the phone onto the bed. Then the doorbell rang. It was a process server. "Lily Martinez," he asked. "Yes, you have been served." He handed me a thick stack of documents. I looked at the cover page. State of New York Harbor County Chancery Division, emergency motion for appointment of successor counsel. I flipped to the first page. Petitioner, Martinez Klein, LLP, moves this court to recognize Martinez Employment Law as the designated successor entity for sensitive client matters, pursuant to the agreement in principle reached between the parties. Paragraph 4, Ms. Lily Martinez has been designated as anticipated managing counsel for the transition period. Paragraph 5. Due to the urgent nature of pending litigation involving Halcyon Health Systems, petitioner requests that all files related to said matter be transferred to the successor entity immediately to preserve privilege. I dropped the papers on the porch. He wasn't just trying to conflict me out. He was trying to become me. If the court granted this motion, my firm would legally become a container for his toxic waste. He would dump the Halcyon files into my practice. He would make me the managing counsel of the cover-up. And because I would be the successor, I would inherit the liability. When the fraud was exposed, it wouldn't be Gordon Martinez who went to jail. It would be Lily Martinez, the managing counsel who signed off on the transition. He was framing me. He was framing me to save himself. I stood there on the porch, staring at the suburban street. A lawnmower buzzed in the distance. I realized then that Renee was right. This wasn't a family drama. It wasn't about ego or legacy or love. It was a survival instinct. My father was drowning, and he had decided that the only way to stay afloat was to stand on my shoulders. I picked up the papers. "Okay, Dad," I said to the empty air. "You want a unification?" I went inside and called Renee. "File the motion," I said. And Renee, "Yes, attach the cybersecurity report and attach the invoice from the contractor. We are not just striking my name. We are filing a counterclaim for fraud." "Lily," Renee said, her voice serious, "if you do that, you are accusing the most powerful lawyer in the city of a felony. You are nuking the bridge." I looked at the photoshopped picture on my phone. "The bridge is already gone. Renee, I am just burning the debris." The clerk at the Chancery Division was a woman named Mrs. Higgins, who had been stamping documents since before I was born. She knew my father. She knew everyone. When Renee and I walked up to the glass partition, Mrs. Higgins looked at us with a mixture of pity and bureaucratic fatigue. "You know this file is under seal." "Lily," she said. Judge Vance locked it down tight. "I know, Mrs. Higgins," I said, "but I am named in it. I am a party of interest. Under the rules of civil procedure, I have a right to view the pleadings that concern my own legal standing." She sighed, checking her computer screen. She typed slowly, agonizingly. "Technically, you are listed as an affiliate," she said, "but since you haven't filed an appearance yet, I can't give you copies. I can only let you look at them here, in the viewing room. No phones, no cameras. That works," Renee said. Mrs. Higgins disappeared into the back and returned with a heavy, red-weld expansion folder. She buzzed us into a small, windowless room with a single table and 2 plastic chairs. "You have 30 minutes, she said. Renee and I sat down. I opened the file. The smell of fresh toner and old dust hit me. We split the stack. Renee took the financial disclosures. I took the narrative declarations. I started reading, and my breath caught in my throat. The petition wasn't just a restructuring plan. It was a confession of imminent collapse masked as a strategic pivot. Martinez and Klein was bleeding. They were facing 3 class action lawsuits related to pharmaceutical defense malpractice. and their insurance carrier had issued a reservation of rights letter, meaning the firm might be on the hook for millions in settlements. They needed a lifeboat, and the lifeboat was me. "Look at this," Renee whispered, sliding a page over to me. It was a section titled, Preservation of Client Trust. It read, "To ensure seamless continuity of service for sensitive matters, the firm has designated Martinez Employment Law as the safe continuation entity. Ms. Lily Martinez has been informally consulted regarding this transition and is supportive of the initiative to preserve the family legacy." Supportive. I felt the blood pound in my ears. I turned the page to the exhibits. Exhibit C was titled, Evidence of Cooperation. It was a collage of emails. My emails, but they had been butchered. There was an email I had sent to Elaine 3 months ago, declining a coffee meeting. Original. Dear Elaine, while I am open to discussing the future of the legal market generally, I have no interest in any formal association with Martinez and Klein. The filing version, Dear Elaine, I am open to discussing the future. An association with Martinez and Klein. They had cut the middle. They had stitched the beginning and the end together to make me say the exact opposite of what I meant. Here's another one, I said, my voice shaking. It was an email to my father from Christmas. Original Dad, I am glad you are doing well, but please stop asking about my firm. I am handling my own cases. The filing version Dad, I am glad to be handling cases. It was clumsy, but in the context of a dry legal filing, it looked like a dialogue. It looked like a daughter coordinating with her father. They are building a paper trail of consent, Renee said. If the judge sees this and you don't object, he will assume you are on board. He will sign the order transferring the Halcyon files to your office, and once those files cross your threshold, you own them. You own the malpractice. You own the conflict. I closed the folder. We need to file a motion to unseal. I said, we need to show the judge the full emails. Not yet, Renee said. If we file now, they will claim it is a misunderstanding. They will say it was a clerical error in the editing room. We need more. We need to prove intent. We left the courthouse in silence. The sunlight outside felt harsh and exposing. I went straight to my temporary, secure office, the spare bedroom in Renee's carriage house that we had converted into a war room. I pulled up the encrypted drive from Nadia. I needed to find the link. I needed to prove that my father wasn't just a senile old man being pushed around by Elaine. I needed to prove he was the general. I dove back into the Halcyon documents. I cross-referenced the dates of the fraudulent billing with the legal invoices from Martinez and Klein. Nadia had given me the raw data, but I hadn't looked at the billing codes closely. I scrolled through a spreadsheet titled External Legal Spend. There were hundreds of entries. Contract review, litigation hold, and then I saw it. January 12th. The same week the ghost shifts were logged. Item strategic review/special projects, billed by GM-01, hours 45, rate $1,200 per hour, GM-01. Every firm has a hierarchy of billing initials. The founding partner is always number 1, Gordon Martinez. He had billed 45 hours in a single week to Halcyon. He had told me, over and over, that he was semi-retired. He told me he just came in to shake hands and kiss babies. He told me Elaine ran the shop. But you don't bill 45 hours for shaking hands. You bill 45 hours for reading thousands of documents, drafting strategy, and burying bodies. He was the special projects team. He wasn't just protecting the client. He was the architect of the fraud. I sat back in my chair. The betrayal wasn't new, but the depth of it was shocking. He wasn't just a bad father. He was a corrupt lawyer, and he was trying to merge with me not to save me, but to hide himself inside my clean reputation. I grabbed my phone. I didn't call his office. I called his personal cell. Meet me, I said when he answered. Lily. He sounded surprised. Is everything all right, the Blue Jay Diner? I said. In an hour? Come alone. If I see Elaine, I leave. The Blue Jay was a relic from the 50s, smelling of bacon grease and stale coffee. It was where he used to take me for pancakes when I was a kid, back before law school. before the firm ate him alive. He was sitting in a booth in the back, wearing a casual sweater that made him look smaller, softer. He stood up when I approached. "Lily," he said, reaching out. "Sit down." "Gordon," I said. I slid into the booth opposite him. "I didn't order anything. I saw the filings," I said. He sighed, folding his hands on the table. "I assumed you would eventually," he said. "I wanted to tell you personally, but Elaine insisted on the legal formalities. She is very aggressive. Lily, you know that. Don't blame Elaine." I said, "I saw the emails. Dad, I saw how you chopped up my words to make me look like a co-conspirator. Elaine didn't write those emails to you. You received them. You knew what I really said." He looked pained. He looked like a man carrying a heavy burden. "We had to show the court that there was a plan," he said softly. "The firm is in trouble, Lily. The pharmaceutical cases. The exposure is higher than we thought. If we don't restructure, if we don't show a path to continuity, the creditors will tear us apart. 500 people work for me, secretaries, paralegals, junior associates. If the firm goes under, they lose everything. So you decided to sacrifice me to save them?" I asked. "No," he said, his voice rising. "Not sacrifice, protect. I am trying to give you the kingdom. Lily, yes, there are some debts. Yes, there are some messy files, but the brand, the name Martinez, it is worth millions. I am handing you a legacy that took me 40 years to build." I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. I saw the halcyon billing codes. Gordon, GM01. His face went still. The pained father act vanished, replaced by the sharp, calculating look of the trial lawyer. "You have been digging," he said. 45 hours in 1 week. I said, "You are not semi-retired. You are running the cover-up. You build them for the strategy to hide the ghost shifts." He didn't deny it. He didn't even blink. "I represent my client," he said coldly. "That is what lawyers do. We zealously advocate. Halcyon is the backbone of this city's economy. If they go down, the hospital closes. People lose jobs. Sometimes. Lily, you have to massage the truth to protect the greater good." "Is that what you call it?" I asked. "Massaging the truth." Nadia Pierce calls it fraud. Nadia Pierce is a low-level functionary who doesn't understand the big picture. He snapped. "And neither do you. Apparently." He leaned across the table. "I did everything for you. Lily, who do you think paid for your apartment during law school? Who paid for that fancy semester in London? Who introduced you to the judge who gave you your first clerkship? I paid for every step you took." I stared at him. "I paid you back." I said, "I paid back every loan. Money is not the only currency," he hissed. "I gave you the platform. I gave you the name. You think you are a real lawyer now? You are only a lawyer because I paved the road. And now, when I need you to just stand still and let me merge our paths so I don't lose everything. You want to lecture me on ethics." He was rewriting history. He was turning my hard work into his charity. I stood up. "I am not your asset, Gordon, and I am not your retirement plan." I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket. I had written it out in the car. "Here is my offer." I said, "I will help you find independent counsel for your legitimate clients, the ones who aren't involved in fraud. I will help them transfer to other firms. I will help your secretaries find new jobs." I slid the paper across the table. "But I will never merge with you. I will never let you use my name as a successor, and I will never, ever let you touch my brand." His eyes narrowed. "Your brand," he sneered. "You don't have a brand. You have a little storefront. I am the brand. Martinez is me." There it was. The ego. The absolute inability to see me as separate from himself. I turned to walk away. "If you walk out, Lily," he called after me, his voice low and dangerous, "you are walking into a war you cannot win. I will bury you in paper. I will drain your accounts. I will make sure no client in this state ever hires you again." I stopped. I didn't turn around. "You can try." "Dad," I said, "but you are forgetting one thing." "What is that?" "I am a Martinez too, and I learned from the best. I walked out of the diner into the parking lot. My hands were shaking, but my head was clear. The cord was cut. He wasn't my father anymore. He was just the defendant. I drove back to the war room. Nadia was there, sitting with Renee. She looked pale. "What happened?" I asked. Nadia looked up. Her eyes were red. "My husband was uninvited from the charity golf tournament this weekend," she said, "and my daughter. She came home from school crying. The other girls in her scout troop, their mothers won't let them come over for play dates anymore. They said we are trouble." I felt a surge of nausea. This was the social pressure, the country club whisper network. Halcyon and Martinez Klein were making Nadia radioactive. "They are trying to break you." "Nadia," I said, sitting down beside her, "they can't fire you because of the whistleblower protections, so they are trying to make your life so miserable that you quit or recant." "It is working," she whispered. "My husband is furious. He wants me to drop it. He says it isn't worth ruining our lives." I took her hands. "Listen to me. If you drop it now, they win, and they won't stop. They will still punish you for daring to speak up. The only way out is through. You have to be steady." I grabbed a notebook. "Write it down." I said, "Every snub, every canceled invitation, every weird look, it is all evidence of retaliation. We will add it to the complaint. Do not let them see you cry. Save the tears for this room. Out there you are stone." She nodded, taking a deep breath. "Stone," she repeated. The next morning, the compromise arrived. It came via courier. Naturally, a sleek envelope from Elaine. Inside was a letter, drafted for my signature. Declaration of Lily Martinez. I, Lily Martinez, acknowledge that I have engaged in preliminary discussions regarding the strategic alignment of my firm with Martinez Klein. While formal unification is not yet finalized, I consent to the continued exploration of synergies and agree to maintain confidentiality regarding these discussions. It looked harmless. It looked like a maybe. Renee read it over my shoulder and snorted. "Do not sign that," she said. "I wasn't planning on it." I said, "But tell me why." "Because," Renee said, pointing to the phrase preliminary discussions, "if you sign this, you are admitting to the court that there is a negotiation. If there is a negotiation, the court has jurisdiction to pause your other lawsuits to preserve the status quo of the deal. They will use this letter to stay the Halcyon case. They will say, 'Your Honor, we can't litigate against Ms. Martinez while we are negotiating to buy her.' It buys them 6 months of delay, and in 6 months, they will shred every document they have." It was a trap disguised as an olive branch. I crumpled the letter and threw it in the trash. "Tell Elaine no," I told Sarah. "Tell her no," Sarah asked. "Or tell her to go to hell. Just no." I said, "Let's keep it professional." But professionalism, it turned out, was a one-way street. 24 hours after I rejected the letter, the reviews started popping up. I got an alert on my phone from a lawyer rating site. 1 star. "Ms. Martinez took my retainer and never filed the paperwork. She is a thief. Do not trust her." Anonymous. Then another. On Google, 1 star. "Liars. She claims to be an expert, but she clearly doesn't know the law. Lost my case because she missed a deadline. Incompetent." Former client. I stared at the screen. I had never missed a deadline in my life. I had never stolen a dime. Sarah ran into my office. "Lily, look at Yelp." She said, 2 more just appeared. They are saying you are emotionally unstable." I clicked the link. The attorney was hysterical during our consultation. She screamed at me. "I think she has mental health issues." Hysterical. My father's word. He was doing exactly what he said he would. He was attacking my reputation. He knew that for a solo practitioner, online reputation was everything. If potential clients Googled me and saw thief and unstable, they wouldn't call. He was trying to starve me out. I felt the tears prickling my eyes. Tears of pure, hot rage. "Don't reply to them," I told Sarah. "But they are lies," Sarah cried. "We have to defend ourselves if we reply. We validate them." I said, "We look defensive." I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the street. somewhere in a glass tower downtown. My father was probably sitting in his leather chair, checking his phone, waiting for me to break. He thought I would come crawling back. He thought I would sign his compromise just to make the pain stop. He forgot who raised me. I turned back to Renee. "We are not going to fight this in the comments section." I said, "Where are we going to fight it?" Renee asked. "In open court." I said. I sat down at my laptop. Draft the motion. Renee. Motion to strike Martinez employment law from the restructuring petition and include a motion for sanctions for filing false pleadings. Renee nodded, her fingers already flying across her keyboard. And Renee, I added, "Yes, request an oral argument. In person. Open courtroom. No sealed chambers." "Are you sure?" she asked. "If we do that, the press will be there. The dirty laundry will be everywhere." "I want the press there." I said, "I want everyone to see it. He wants to use my name. Fine. I will stand up in front of the entire city and tell them exactly what my name stands for. And it isn't him." I looked at the crumpled letter in the trash. "He wants a family narrative," I whispered. "I'll give him a tragedy." The hearing was set for a Tuesday. In the legal world, Tuesday is a killing day. Monday is for filing motions, for posturing, for trying to settle before the real work begins. Tuesday is when the judge actually reads the papers and decides who bleeds. We had 4 days. I turned Renee's guest room into a forensic lab. The bed was covered in flowcharts. The walls were taped with timelines. Dev, my cybersecurity specialist, had printed out the raw code from the registry key found on my server. It looked like gibberish to the untrained eye, but to Dev, it was a fingerprint. "Look at the timestamp," Dev said, pointing to a line of code. The back door was accessed on January 14th at 3 in the morning. I looked at the timeline on the wall. January 14th was the day after I won the nurses' hearing. It was the day before the partnership packet arrived. And look at the IP address, Dev continued. "It bounces through a VPN in the Caymans. But the handshake request, the initial ping, it came from a static IP. He typed a string of numbers into a WHOI's database. The result popped up on the screen: Registrant Martinez Klein, LLP, location 100 Financial District Boulevard. Server room B. It wasn't a contractor. It wasn't a rogue hacker. The call came from inside the building. "We have them." I said, "We can prove they accessed the system before they sent the offer." "That is the unauthorized access," Renee said from the corner, where she was collating the exhibit binders. "Now we need to prove the fraud on the court." I picked up the stack of Exhibit C documents, the manipulated emails my father's firm had filed. I had printed my original emails next to their edited versions. It was surgical. They had removed every no, every however, every I decline. They had left only the polite filler, stitching it together to create a tapestry of consent. "I am going to enlarge these," I said. "I am going to put them on poster boards. I want Judge Vance to see exactly how they cut out my tongue and used it to write their own script." The phone rang. It was the burner phone I had given to Nadia Pierce. "Lily," she said. Her voice was tight. "What is it?" "Nadia." "They sent a courier to my house," she said. "With a settlement offer." I felt a spike of adrenaline. "Don't sign anything. Read it to me. It is a lot of money." "Lily, $300,000. Net, tax-free, structured as a pain and suffering payout. $300,000 was life-changing money for a mid-level compliance officer. It was a college fund. It was a paid-off mortgage. "What is the catch?" I asked. "There is a non-disclosure agreement. Obviously," she said, "I can never speak about Halcyon or the staffing logs again." "Standard." I said. "What else?" "There is a condition precedent," she said. She hesitated. "Tell me." "Nadia, I have to terminate you as my counsel," she said. "And I have to sign a statement saying that my previous allegations were based on a misunderstanding of the data and that I was pressured by my attorney to exaggerate the claims." The room went silent. They didn't just want to buy her silence. They wanted to buy my destruction. They wanted a sworn statement from my own client saying I had suborned perjury. If Nadia signed that, my father wouldn't just win the merger, He would have the ammunition to disbar me, Lily Nadia asked. Are you there? I am here. I said, What should I do? She asked. I closed my eyes. As her lawyer, I had a duty to her interests, not mine. Nadia, I said slowly, $300,000 is a lot of money. If you take it, your financial worries are over. You can move. You can start fresh. But she asked, But if you sign that statement, you are lying. You are admitting to something you didn't do. And you are accusing me of something I didn't do. And once you sign it, they own you. If you ever try to speak the truth again, they will sue you for breach of contract and take every penny back. There was a long silence on the line. I could hear her breathing. I could hear the television on in the background, a cartoon playing for her daughter. I waited. I prepared myself to lose her. I prepared myself to be fired. I can't do it, she said finally. Are you sure? I asked. I am looking at my daughter. Lily, if I take this money, how do I explain to her where it came from? How do I teach her to be honest if I sold my integrity for a check? She took a deep breath. Tell them no. She said, Tell them I am not for sale, and tell them I am testifying. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. You are brave. Nadia, I said, braver than they are. I hung up. We are going to trial. I told Renee. Nadia just turned down the settlement. Renee looked at me over her reading glasses. Then you better be ready, she said, because now they have nothing left to lose, and a cornered animal bites. That night, I went home to a house that felt like a waiting room. Evan was sitting on the couch, the television muted. He was staring at a blank wall. Hey, I said, putting my bag down. He didn't look up. Gordon called me again. He said, I froze. I told you to block his number. Evan, I did. He said, he called the school. He called the main office line. My secretary put him through because he said it was a family emergency. I felt the anger rising, hot and fast. What did he say? He said he is worried about your mental state. Evan said, he said you are spiraling. He said you are filing frivolous motions and making wild accusations. He told me that if I really loved you, I would stop you from destroying your career in open court. He stood up, finally looking at me. His eyes were tired. Lily, are you sure about this? He asked. Am I sure about what? About the conspiracy? About the fraud? Is it possible? Is it possible that you are reading too much into it? I mean, hacking your computer, faking emails. It sounds like a movie. Lily, it doesn't sound like real life. I stared at him. This was the man I was supposed to marry. The man who knew me better than anyone. And my father had managed to plant a seed of doubt in his mind in a 5-minute phone call. Come with me, I said. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I walked to my bag and pulled out the report from Dev. I pulled out the billing codes from Halcyon showing GM-01, charging 45 hours for special projects. I pulled out the side-by-side comparison of the emails. I spread them out on the coffee table. Look, I said, don't listen to me. Don't listen to him. Look at the paper. Evan looked. He picked up the email comparison. He read the original, then the filed version. He looked at the IP address log. He read for 10 minutes. When he looked up, the doubt was gone, replaced by horror. He did this, Evan whispered. He did this, I said. And he is using you to get to me because he knows you are the only soft spot I have left. Evan dropped the papers. He looked sick. I am sorry, he said. I wanted to believe there was a misunderstanding. I wanted to believe he wasn't a monster. He isn't a monster. Evan, I said, that is the problem. Monsters are easy to fight. He is a desperate man who thinks he is a hero. He thinks saving his firm justifies sacrificing his daughter. That is much harder to fight. Evan pulled me into a hug. He held me tight, like he was trying to shield me from a physical blow. I am scared for you, he said into my hair. I am scared too, I admitted. But I am more scared of what happens if I stop. I said, if I stop, I become him. I become part of the lie. The next day, 2 days before the hearing, A bicycle messenger arrived at Renee's office. He didn't ask for a signature. He just dropped a plain manila envelope on the porch and rode away. It was addressed to L. Martinez. No stamp, no return address. I opened it with gloves on. Inside was a single stack of photocopied memos. Internal memos from Martinez Klein. They were dated 6 months ago. Memo 1. From Elaine Klein, managing partner, to Gordon Martinez, senior partner, subject succession strategy/liability shield. Gordon, the actuarial reports on the pharmaceutical litigation are worse than projected. We are looking at a $40 million exposure. The insurance cap is 20. We need a continuity vehicle. I propose we accelerate the acquisition of a clean entity to serve as a successor for sensitive assets. We need a firm with a pristine reputation and no prior connection to the malpractice claims. Memo 2. From Gordon Martinez, to Elaine Klein. Subject re-succession strategy. I will not buy a stranger's firm. We built this name. We keep it in the house. Memo 3. From Elaine Klein, to Gordon Martinez. Subject, the family solution. Then we use Lily. Her numbers are solid. Her reputation is unblemished. If we bring her in as a named partner, we can spin the restructuring as a generational unification. The courts love a family narrative. It establishes trust. It allows us to transfer the halcyon files under the guise of mentorship, rather than offloading liability. She is the perfect shield, Gordon, and it brings her home, which I know you want. Memo 4. From Gordon Martinez, to Elaine Klein. Subject re, the family solution. She will never agree. She hates the corporate work. Memo 5. From Elaine Klein, to Gordon Martinez. Subject, the narrative. She does not have to agree to the details. She just has to agree to the concept. We handle the paperwork. We handle the filings. By the time she realizes the extent of the transfer, the commingling will be irreversible. You get your legacy. We get our liability cap. It is the only way to save the firm. Gordon, there was a handwritten note in the margin of the last memo, in my father's distinct, jagged scrawl. Proceed, but keep it gentle. I sat there, staring at the paper. Keep it gentle. That was his concession. He authorized them to steal my identity, to frame me for their fraud, to ruin my independence as long as they did it gently. I realized then that my father wasn't the mastermind. Elaine was the shark. Gordon was just the man who opened the gate because he was too proud to let his ship sink. He had sold me out not because he hated me, but because he loved his own name more than he respected mine. Who sent this? Renee asked, looking at the documents. I don't know, I said. Someone who was there 6 months ago. Someone who kept the files. Maybe a secretary who got fired, Renee suggested. Or maybe someone who still works there and hates what Elaine has done. I said, it didn't matter. The documents were authentic. I recognized the letterhead. I recognized the signatures. We have the intent. I said, we have the plan. I need to see Elaine. I said. Renee shook her head. Bad idea. Anything you say can be used against you. I am not going to negotiate. I said, I am going to give her one chance to withdraw the petition before I file these memos in public record. I called Elaine's direct line. She picked up on the second ring. Hello. Lily, she said. I assume you are calling to accept the compromise. I'm calling to invite you to the Modern Art Museum. I said, the sculpture garden, in 30 minutes. That is highly irregular, she said. I have the memos. Elaine, I said, the ones from 6 months ago. The ones where you call me a liability shield. There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath. 30 minutes, she said. The sculpture garden was cold, gray, and empty. The wind whipped through the metal structures, making them hum. Elaine arrived wearing a trench coat that looked like armor. She didn't look like the warm, rehearsed woman from lunch. She looked like a general inspecting the front lines. You are bluffing, she said as she walked up. I held up a photocopy of the memo. She is the perfect shield. Gordon, I read aloud. Elaine didn't flinch. She stared at the paper, then at me. So you have a leak, she said. It happens. This proves fraud. Elaine, I said, It proves you plan to use my firm to dump your toxic assets. If I give this to the judge, you won't just lose the motion, you will lose your license." Elaine laughed. It was a cold, hard sound. "You think the judge cares about internal strategy memos?" she asked. "The judge cares about stability. Martinez and Klein employs 500 people in this city. We represent the hospitals, the banks, the insurance companies. If we go down, the ripple effect destroys the local economy." She stepped closer. "You are thinking like a solo practitioner. Lily, you think this is about right and wrong. It isn't. It is about systems. Your father built a system that holds this city together. Yes, it has some cracks. Yes, we need to patch those cracks. You are the patch. I am not a patch." I said. "I am a person." Elaine sneered. "You are a Martinez. That is not a person. That is an asset. Your father understands that. He knows that the only way to survive is to evolve. We need your clean record to reassure the insurers. We need your grassroots image to distract from the malpractice suits." She looked me up and down. "Your father built this city's trust. You can either inherit it and run the biggest firm in the state, or you can burn it down and be the woman who destroyed her own family for what ethics matter." I said, "Ethics are a luxury for people who don't have payroll to meet," she said. She turned to leave. "Here is the reality. Lily, we filed the papers. The court wants this merger to happen because it solves a problem for the docket. If you fight us, we will drag it out for years. We will drain your resources. We will slander your name until you can't get a client to return your call. Inherit it or watch it burn," she said over her shoulder. "Those are your choices." I watched her walk away. I drove back to Renee's office. I felt cold, but it was a clarifying cold. Inherit it or watch it burn. I told Renee what she said. She is right about one thing. Renee said, "Inherit is a romantic word, but in law, inherit means absorb liability. If you take the firm, you take the debts, you take the sins." I sat down at the desk. "I choose option 3. I said, "What is option 3? I don't inherit it, and I don't just watch it burn, I light the match." I opened my laptop. "I'm going to email my clients." I said, "All of them." Renee hesitated. "That is risky. If you say too much, it is defamation." "I will stick to the facts." I said. I drafted the email carefully. Subject: important notice regarding Martinez employment law. Dear clients, you may have heard rumors or seen news reports suggesting that my firm is merging with Martinez Klein, LLP. I am writing to you directly to clarify the situation. There is no merger. Martinez employment law remains a strictly independent entity. We have not agreed to partner, assume liability, or share client files with any other firm. It has come to our attention that unauthorized access to our scheduling system occurred. We have secured our networks and are taking legal action to address this breach. My loyalty is to you, my clients, and to no one else. If anyone contacts you claiming to represent a successor firm, please notify me immediately. Sincerely, Lily Martinez. I let Renee review it. She tweaked one sentence to protect me from a libel suit. "Send it," she said. I hit send. The response was immediate. My phone started buzzing. "Elena, the nurse. I knew it. Don't let them take you. Lily, we are with you. David, the severance client. Thank God. I hired you. Not them. But there were others." One corporate client replied, "Lily, this sounds messy. We need stability. We are moving our files to a larger firm. Please transfer our records." I watched the replies come in. I lost 3 clients in the first hour. People were scared. Chaos is bad for business. But the ones who stayed, the whistleblowers, the fired employees, the people who had been bullied by giants, they sent messages of support. They understood. I had made my choice. I was smaller now, but I was clean. The hearing was set for 9 in the morning, at 10 o'clock the night before. My phone rang. It was Gordon. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't talk to him. If I heard his voice, I might crumble. I might remember the dad who taught me to ride a bike, not the man who sold me to an insurance carrier. I listened to the message a few minutes later. sitting in the dark of my living room. Lily. His voice started. It sounded old, tired. Please don't do this. You don't know what you are unraveling. I tried to shield you from the ugly parts of this business. I tried to give you the finished product. If you go into that courtroom tomorrow and file those memos, you are not just hurting me. You are hurting the history of this family. He paused. I heard the clink of a glass. Then his voice changed. The warmth evaporated. The trial lawyer emerged, cold and sharp. But listen to me closely. If you humiliate me, if you make me look like a fool in front of my peers, you will lose more than you think. You think you are independent. You are only independent because I allow you to be. Don't force me to remind you how small you really are. Click. I sat in the silence. It was a threat, vague enough to deny, sharp enough to land. He was telling me that he could still crush me, but as I sat there, I realized something. He was afraid. For 30 years, Gordon Martinez had been the scariest man in the room, but tonight, he was the one making late-night phone calls. He was the one begging. He wasn't afraid of losing money. He was afraid of being seen. He was afraid that the carefully constructed image of the Martinez legacy was about to be exposed as a hollow shell held together by fraud and intimidation. I stood up. I walked to the mirror in the hallway. I looked at myself. I looked tired. I looked pale. But I looked like me. I am not small. I whispered to the reflection. I went to bed. I slept for 4 hours. When I woke up, I put on my armor, a black suit, sharp and severe. I pulled my hair back. Evan drove me to the courthouse. The press was already there. Vans with satellite dishes, reporters with microphones. The Martinez versus Martinez headline was too juicy to ignore. They swarmed the car when we pulled up. Ms. Martinez. Is it true you are suing your father? Ms. Martinez. Are the merger talks off, Lily? Look this way. Evan squeezed my hand. You ready? He asked. I looked at the courthouse steps. They were steep. At the top, the stone pillars loomed like giants. I opened the door. The flashbulbs popped. Blinding white light. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I walked straight up the stairs, my heels clicking a rhythm on the stone. This wasn't just a legal argument anymore. It wasn't just a motion to strike. It was a declaration of independence. I walked through the metal detectors. I walked down the hall to courtroom 402. I pushed open the double doors. Gordon was already there. He was sitting at the petitioner's table, flanked by Elaine and 3 other partners. They looked like a wall of expensive wool in confident silence. I walked to the respondent's table. I was alone, except for Renee. Gordon looked at me. His eyes were hard, unreadable. I set my briefcase down. I took out the manila envelope with the leaked memos. I took out the cybersecurity report. I took out the declaration from Nadia Pierce. I looked at the judge's bench. Let's go. I thought. The bailiff called out, all rise. I stood up, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like Gordon Martinez's daughter. I felt like the opposing counsel. Judge Vance looked like a man who had missed breakfast and was regretting it. He sat high on the bench, flipping through the motion papers with a rhythmic, impatient snapping sound. The courtroom was packed. Every seat in the gallery was filled with junior associates, legal bloggers, and the sharks from the mid-sized firms who smelled blood in the water. This is a motion to strike, Judge Vance asked, looking over his reading glasses. Renee stood up. Her voice was clear, ringing off the mahogany walls. Yes, Your Honor. We are moving to strike Martinez employment law from the restructuring petition on the grounds that my client, Ms. Lily Martinez, never consented to the inclusion. We are also alleging that the petitioner, Martinez and Klein, fabricated evidence of a merger to mislead this court. The judge looked at the defense table. Mr. Martinez, he asked, or is it Miss? Klein Elaine stood up. She looked unbothered, almost bored. Your Honor, Elaine said smoothly, this is a regrettable misunderstanding. We have been in sensitive, high-level negotiations with Ms. Martinez for months. We included her firm in the draft petition as a placeholder. Based on verbal agreements in principle, we were under the impression she was supportive until family dynamics became complicated. She turned and gave me a pitying look. Ms. Martinez is understandably emotional. Elaine continued. This is a stressful time for her family. We believe she is reacting to the pressure of the transition, rather than the substance of the deal. We ask for a continuance to allow the parties to mediate this privately. It was the perfect trap. If I got angry, I proved I was emotional. If I stayed silent, I let her frame the narrative. I stood up. Renee touched my arm, but I stepped forward. Your Honor, I said. My voice did not shake. I am not asking for mediation. I am asking for the record to be corrected. I picked up the first exhibit. Ms. Klein claims there were verbal agreements, I said, but the evidence shows something different. I would like to direct the court's attention to Exhibit A. The bailiff handed the document to the judge. This is a forensic report from Devlin Cybersecurity. I said, on January 14th, at 3 a.m, a user with administrator credentials from Martinez and Klein accessed my firm's private server. They did not ask for permission. They installed a persistent tracking token that allowed them to monitor my calendar, my client list, and my intake pipeline. I paused, letting the words settle. They didn't negotiate with me, Your Honor. They surveilled me. Elaine jumped up. Objection. This is speculation. It is not speculation, I said, holding up the IP log. It is math. The IP address traces directly to the server room at One Financial District, the headquarters of Martinez and Klein. Judge Vance looked at the report. His eyebrows knit together. Continue. Ms. Martinez, he said. I moved to the next exhibit, Exhibit B. I said, the petitioner filed emails suggesting I was supportive of this merger. They presented these emails as proof of intent. I held up the poster board I had prepared. On the left were the emails filed by the firm. On the right were the originals. If you look at the email dated December 12th, I said, pointing to the board. The filing quotes me as saying, quote, I am open to discussing the future and association with Martinez and Klein. End quote. I pointed to the original, but the actual email reads, while I am open to discussing the future of the legal market generally, I have no interest in any formal association with Martinez and Klein. A murmur went through the gallery. The difference wasn't subtle. It was fraudulent. They deleted the refusal. Your Honor, I said, they manipulated the text to make a no look like a yes. That is not a misunderstanding. That is perjury. Elaine looked stiff now. She whispered something to Gordon, who was sitting stone-faced, staring straight ahead. Judge Vance looked at Elaine. Ms. Klein, do you have an explanation for why the text of these emails differs? Elaine stood up, smoothing her skirt. Your Honor, these summaries were prepared by administrative staff. If there were clerical errors in the transcription, we apologize. But the intent of the discussions was positive. Gordon Martinez is the father of the respondent. It is natural that their communications would be informal and subject to interpretation. The judge didn't look convinced. I would like to hear from the senior partner. Judge Vance said, Mr. Martinez, please take the stand. Gordon stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He walked to the witness box with the gravity of a statesman. He swore the oath. Mr. Martinez, the judge said, did you authorize the filing of this petition naming your daughter's firm as a successor? Gordon looked at the judge, then at me. His eyes were sad, filled with a practiced melancholy. I did, Your Honor, he said. And did you have her written consent? The judge asked. I had her trust, Gordon said softly, or I thought I did. Lily is my daughter. I have supported her career from the beginning. When it became clear that my firm needed to restructure to protect our clients, I reached out to her. I wanted to secure her future. I wanted to give her the platform she deserves. He leaned forward, engaging the judge man to man. Your Honor, you know how this business is. It eats people alive. I was trying to build a shelter for her, I admit. We may have moved faster than the paperwork allowed, but it was done with the purest of intentions. I was trying to protect my family, It was brilliant. He was pivoting from legal technicalities to moral duty. He was the benevolent patriarch, and I was the ungrateful child. Renee stood up. It was her turn. Mr. Martinez, Renee said, you say you wanted to protect your daughter. Is that correct? Yes, Gordon said. Of course. And you say the restructuring was necessary to protect your clients. Yes. Renee picked up the manila envelope, the one that had been left on her porch. I would like to introduce Exhibit C, Renee said, an internal memorandum dated 6 months ago, from Elaine Klein to Gordon Martinez. Elaine froze at the table. Gordon's eyes flickered. Renee read from the document. Subject: the family solution. Quote, if we bring her in as a named partner, we can spin the restructuring as a generational unification. She is the perfect shield. Gordon, and it brings her home. End quote. Renee looked up. Mr. Martinez, did you receive this memo? Gordon hesitated. He licked his lips. I receive hundreds of memos, he said. Let me read your reply. Renee said, Exhibit D. Quote, proceed, but keep it gentle. End quote. The courtroom was dead silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop humming. Keep it gentle, Renee repeated. That doesn't sound like a father protecting his daughter. Mr. Martinez, that sounds like a predator telling his hunter how to set the trap. You weren't bringing her in to lead, were you? You were bringing her in to absorb the liability of your failing firm. Gordon gripped the railing of the witness box. His knuckles were white. That is a mischaracterization, he snapped. His voice lost its warmth. We were looking for synergy. Lily's firm has a clean record. Ours has complex litigation. It was a business decision. A business decision to use her name without her permission, Renee pressed. She is a Martinez, Gordon shouted. The veneer cracked. He stood up in the box. The name belongs to me. I built it. She doesn't get to decide what the name stands for. I do. The outburst rang in the room. Judge Vance stared at him. Sit down. Mr. Martinez, the judge said quietly. Gordon sat, breathing hard. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the fear behind the rage. He knew he had just lost the room, but we weren't done. Your Honor, Renee said, we have one more witness, a witness who can explain exactly why the firm needed a clean shield. We call Nadia Pierce. Elaine shot up. Objection, Ms. Pierce is a former employee of a client. Her testimony is irrelevant to this restructuring petition. It goes to motive, Your Honor, Renee said. It explains why they needed Lily Martinez specifically. Overruled, the judge said. Call the witness. Nadia walked in. She looked terrified. She was wearing a simple gray suit, her hands clutching her purse, but she walked to the stand and sat down. Ms. Pierce, Renee said, why are you here today? Nadia leaned into the microphone. Her voice was small but steady. I am a compliance officer at Halcyon Health Systems, she said. I discovered evidence of billing fraud. When I reported it, I was silenced. And what does this have to do with Martinez and Klein? Renee asked. They are the outside counsel, Nadia said. They managed the legal review that covered up the fraud. Renee handed her a document. Miss Pierce, do you recognize this email? Yes, Nadia said. It is from the CEO of Halcyon. Dated 2 weeks ago. Please read the highlighted portion. Nadia took a breath. Quote, don't worry about the audit. Gordon has a transition plan. He is merging with his daughter's firm. She is a civil rights attorney. Once she is the face of the practice, the regulators will back off. She gives us cover. End quote. I felt a physical blow to my chest. She gives us cover. It wasn't just about the malpractice insurance. It was about the optics. They wanted to use my reputation as a civil rights attorney to whitewash their corporate crimes. They wanted to drape my integrity over their corruption like a clean sheet over a dead body. The judge looked at the email. He looked at Gordon. He looked at Elaine. So, the judge said, his voice dangerously low, this wasn't a merger. This was a laundering operation. You were laundering your reputation through this court. Gordon didn't answer. He stared at the table. Judge Vance picked up his gavel. He didn't bang it. He just held it, testing its weight. I have heard enough, he said. He turned to the court clerk. The motion to strike is granted, he said. Martinez's employment law is hereby removed from all pleadings in this matter with prejudice. He turned to Gordon. Mr. Martinez, this court finds that you and your firm have engaged in a pattern of deception that shocks the conscience. You have misled this tribunal. You have fabricated evidence. And you have attempted to conscript an officer of the court, your own daughter, into a scheme to defraud your creditors and clients. The judge scribbled on his order form, I am appointing a neutral monitor to oversee the restructuring of Martinez and Klein immediately. No assets are to be moved, no files are to be transferred, and I am referring the record of this hearing, specifically regarding the unauthorized computer access and the manipulated emails, to the State Attorney's Office and the Bar Association for Criminal and Ethical Investigation. He looked at me. Ms. Martinez, he said, you are free to go. Your firm is yours. Thank you, Your Honor. I said, Court is adjourned, he said. The gavel came down. The room exploded. Reporters scrambled for the doors. The gallery buzzed. I didn't move. I watched my father. He sat there for a long moment. Then he slowly stood up. Elaine was already packing her bag, furiously typing on her phone, ignoring him. She was already planning her exit strategy. He was alone. I walked out of the courtroom. Renee squeezed my shoulder. You did it, she said. I nodded, but I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. We walked down the marble hallway to the exit. The press was waiting at the bottom of the steps. I could see the wall of cameras. Lily. I turned. Gordon was standing by the elevator. He looked older than he had an hour ago. The confident posture was gone. He looked shrunken inside his expensive suit. Go ahead. Renee. I said, I will catch up. Renee hesitated, then nodded and walked toward the doors. I stood facing my father. The hallway was empty except for a bailiff standing guard near the rotunda. You destroyed it, Gordon said. His voice wasn't angry. It was just sad. 40 years. Gone in 40 minutes. You destroyed it yourself. Dad, I said, when you decided that winning was more important than the truth. He looked at me, and his eyes filled with tears. Real tears. I wasn't trying to hurt you. Lily, he said, you have to believe that. I don't know what you were trying to do. I said. He took a step closer. Your mother, he said. I stiffened. Don't bring her into this. I have to, he said. When she died, I promised her I would build something that would last, something that would make the name Martinez mean power, safety. I thought if I could keep the firm alive, if I could make it the biggest in the state, I could keep her alive in people's minds. I could keep us safe. He wiped his eyes. I was terrified. Lily, the firm was failing. The debts were piling up. I thought if I lost the firm, I lost the last piece of her. I wanted you to take it so it would live on. I wanted you to carry her name. I looked at him. I saw the grief. It was real. He had built a fortress out of grief, and he had spent decades defending it. Even when the walls started to rot, he had convinced himself that his ambition was actually devotion, but it was a lie. It was a beautiful, tragic lie. I stepped closer to him. I kept my voice quiet, but firm. Mom didn't want a firm. Dad, I said, she wanted a family. He flinched. And you don't get to mourn her by taking my life. I said, you don't get to turn me into a human shield because you are afraid of being forgotten. That isn't love. That is cannibalism. He stared at me, his mouth slightly open. I am a real lawyer. Dad, I said, but I am not yours. I turned around. Lily. He called out. Wait. I didn't wait. I walked away. I walked down the marble hall. My heels echoing, I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't happiness. It was the feeling of a heavy weight being lifted, leaving the muscles sore and raw. I walked out the double doors into the blinding sunlight. The reporters surged forward. Microphones were shoved in my face. Ms. Martinez. How do you feel? Ms. Martinez? Will you press charges against your father? Ms. Martinez. What is next for your firm? I stopped. I looked at the cameras. I thought about the family narrative Elaine had wanted to sell. I stepped to the nearest microphone. My name is Lily Martinez. I said, I own Martinez Employment Law. We are open for business, and we represent the truth. I pushed through the crowd. At the bottom of the steps, near the street, a car was waiting. Evan was leaning against the hood. He was wearing his work clothes khakis and a polo shirt. He looked normal. He looked sane. He saw me and stood up straighter. He didn't smile, not really. He knew what this had cost me. He walked over and met me on the sidewalk. Is it over? He asked. The lawsuit is over. I said, the investigation is just starting. It is going to be messy. Evan. He is going to be disbarred, maybe indicted. The press is going to camp on our lawn. Evan looked at the mob of reporters behind me. Then he looked at me. He took my hand. I am not afraid of the mess, he said. I looked at him. I realized I had almost lost him because I tried to handle everything alone. I can't promise it will be easy, I said. He squeezed my hand. I don't need easy. Lily, I just need you, the real you, not the successor, not the shield, just you. I nodded, tears finally spilling over. I am here, I said. We got into the car. As we drove away, I looked back at the courthouse. I saw my father come out the doors. He stood at the top of the stairs, alone, looking out at the city he thought he owned. He looked small. I turned forward, watching the road ahead. I was 33 years old. I had no inheritance. I had no safety net. I had enemies in high places. But for the first time in my life, the road didn't belong to him. It belonged to me. And that was enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story. It was a journey about breaking free, finding your voice, and the hard cost of integrity. I would love to know where you are listening from. Please drop your city or country in the comments below. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed Lily's fight for justice, please make sure to subscribe to the Revenge Stories channel so you don't miss the next episode, and I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Gordon deserved forgiveness, or did he go too far? Let me know in the comments in English. Until next time.